Welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque, where we meet some of the important faces involved with films that tackle aspects of the Jewish experience. Today I'm joined by writer and director Eran Kolirin, whose narrative film Vayehi Boker, Let It Be Morning won the 2021 Ophir Award, chosen by the Israeli Film Academy as Best Picture of the Year. The film garnered an additional 6 awards, including Best Director, Screenplay, and Male and Female Leads. The movie takes us inside an Israeli Arab village where the Palestinian protagonist grew up. Sami has returned with his wife and son from Jerusalem to celebrate his younger brother's wedding, only to discover the next morning that the village is in lockdown and he is unable to leave. The film, written by Kolirin, is based on Palestinian-Israeli Sayed Kashua's second novel.
سامي كيف القدس؟
الحمد لله.
أمين أخذ شغلة كثير منيحة مع شركة تلفون وسيارة.
ملكان؟
لا
مش طبيعي، كل مرة نفس القصص.
מה העניינים? אתה שומע אח שלי, הכביש סגור כרגע.
اداني عقد اللي كان ناقصني هسه بكره بتحوني من الشغل.
شوفي كله تمام؟
في شي حاجز على الفوت على البلد. أنا بمشبك عجال يا أخي. ترى تذكرني؟
عمي لوين واصل؟
ما عادتش تفرق المهم نطلع من هالدار والله يا حاج.
بس كل هذا الوضع كل شيء برجع تمام.
أكيد أنت بدي أعمل تاوي لك لجمالك ولا متصور زفاف؟
אני מושג.
لا ما كانتش خطة أبدا، هيك كانت متفق عليها.
شو معبيرة؟ كل شيء تمام؟
بتعرف مني؟
لا بنمرق فترة مش كتير منيحة.
אני אח שלו נעבד בשירות לקוחות.
عيمي وجيت أقول لك إني أنا بحبك كتير كتير كتير.
طيب يلا إن شاء الله كل شيء بيخلص عن قريب.
Eran, welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me here. Pleasure.
So, in your very first film, The Band's Visit, you brought together Egyptians and Israelis to sort of get to know each other and to react to each other, and such a beautiful, powerful film.
Thank you.
In this film, your fourth narrative, you focus really on Palestinians and in a Palestinian, Israeli Arab Palestinian village. How did you come across the story and why did you decide to make it?
It started by the writer Sayed Kashua, who wrote the novel. He approached me with the producer of the film, offering me to do this adaptation for his second novel, Let It Be Morning. You know, at the time, it sounded like an invitation for a public suicide. I mean, like, I know the discourse today, I know, Jewish director, Palestinian story. I mean, the way the world works today, it seems like a big no-no. But on the other hand, there was what I saw as a kind invitation, you know? Someone was offering me, you know, to be a guest in his house. That's the way I saw it. And so even though there was a lot, and the story strikes a chord in me. I mean, because this story about being in closure, the story of one day you are not able to leave your area one day for no reason. There's something, I should say, so Jewish in this story, so Kafkaesque. It's like, in a way, what's brilliant in Said's writing, that is kind of merged this tradition, this Jewish, I would say, tradition of storytelling, you know, that developed when Jews were an endangered minorities, where every day, you know, someone could come and close their street, and he took it and he mirrored it in the Palestinian world, and I could identify and find myself. I could find my historic connection to this story on the one hand, and I felt it, you know, I could find myself in this story, and that was a challenge. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's forbidden, maybe it's not what people are allowed to do today. But on the other hand, he graciously invited me. Why shouldn't I take the invite? And you know, I will just try to be as honest as I can, as observant as I can, you know, listen as much as I can, and make an adaptation that would, you know, be in a dialogue with the book. And I mean, it's, identities are not as structured as we tend to think. They are much more fluid, you know. Said Kashua wrote this book in Hebrew, for example. So in a way...
Well, he only wrote in Hebrew, right?
Yeah, he writes in Hebrew. He's Palestinian. He writes in Hebrew, which is my mother tongue, in a way. And I took it back to the Arabic, which is his mother tongue, because, you know, in the film, of course, the actors are Palestinian. So, you know, there were so many things that drew me to the project that were stronger than all the obstacles or all the no-nos. So I just started working on it, and it really became such a unique bubble of love between all of us making this film.
I want to, in your three previous films, you're constantly dealing with the search for identity and understanding oneself. And what you're just saying is that even though this is a story about Palestinians, you related to it. How is that?
It's the same question as also asking, you know, it's a woman character and you relate to her, I'm a man. I mean, I know all the theories and all the questions, but, you know, underneath everything there is humanity, there is a general humanity. And I'm sorry about the cliche, but, you know, this humanity is there. We cannot overlook the basic humanity which do connects. And your so-called other is part of your own self-definition always. Yeah. So your self-definition is always in interaction with your other, and your other is in interaction with you. And that is part of the search for definition, for your human definition. So, you know, and these are all the reasons for finding myself in, you know, in this story, and finding, I don't think, you know, filmmaking is like working in making an experiment in a laboratory where you sit and you examine something. No, your filmmaking is dialogue, is interaction all the time.
You speak about the other, and one of the beautiful aspects of your film is that there are many others within the film.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost a study of, which I've really never seen before in a film, especially from an Israeli, of Palestinian society within and the different levels of that society.
Yes, I think what was brilliant for me in Said's book is that it constituted these circles of identity and suppressions, which are not only, you know, beginning and ending with the Israeli occupation. Or it's like it's a story that is full of small walls around the protagonist, and then there's a little wall around the protagonist and his wife, and then there's a wall between his small family and his bigger family. And so it's like, it presents like this really layered cake of suppressions, and it's about this everlasting tendency of human beings, once they are closed by a bigger force, what they tend to do is suppress another minority within them. And I think this is very relevant also for Jewish and Israeli audience, in the sense that Jews, historically are an endangered minority. And again, once they got to be a majority, the first thing they did was to suppress the minority inside them, which is the Palestinians. And the Palestinians in the book also, the Palestinians who hold the Israeli citizenships, once they are closed by the military, their first reaction is not against the oppressor, but rather blaming it on the West Bank Arabs, Palestinian within them who don't hold the citizenship. So that's the idea that I loved about the book. It's like a vortex of each class always suppressing the lesser class.
You cinematically, with your favorite cinematographer, Shai Goldman, you've worked with all four of your films. We begin to see those walls. And whether it's the walls that surround the village or the walls within physically, and yet there are moments when we look up at the sky, the kite is flying, everything is free. Why did you decide to go with that route from a visual perspective, to take it one more step further?
Well, I see films as kind of music, and I like the scenes to, how do you say, being juxtaposed in this clinging music, where you would have the darkest moment and then the most stupid moment, and then you go from stupidness to seriousness, and from seriousness to poeticness. And I want my films to resonate. I feel like I'm making this, I try at least, it's like a musical collage that walks around a certain emotion. Let's say the theme of being closed, or the theme of siege. What is the feeling of siege? Internal siege, etc. So that's like, for me, the theme. It's like a musical theme. And then you take this musical theme and you make a stupid scene around it, and then you make a serious scene around it, and then you make a poetic, kite scene that is... And I want, at the end, to have all those scenes kind of resonant and interact with each other, and have all those little overtones where it starts to... so it's not as if I decide, I will make this style. I mean, in a way, I'm more like following an emotion where it becomes too heavy for me. I need to have a stupid joke. When it's stupid joke, then I need to have something serious. I need to have a dialogue with the spectator the way I like it, which is always in between, always playing in between the feelings, and the spectator is sometimes not sure. I mean, what am I seeing? Is this a comedy, or is it? Yeah,
I mean, it's true. There are moments when you're laughing, and there are moments when you're just sort of holding your hands. The tension.
I like my films to be like that, to be honest. I always felt, also with the band's visit, I always felt there were heartfelt moments where you could cry, and then there were like funny, awkward moments of this band in the desert. And the same thing happens with this story. I want the emotion to come unexpectedly. Suddenly you are in deep emotion, and then you are taken out of it very quickly.
You mentioned music. You decided to choose a Palestinian composer.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And your whole crew. I mean, the mix, mostly Israeli, but a number of Palestinians in key roles.
No, I think in the crew we were almost split half and half. We shot the film in the north. So casting director, line producer.
Your casting director was your
My main actress.
your Ophir Award-winning lead actress.
Also, yeah, and also she won for the casting. So I would just answer about my composer. Habib Shhada is a good friend. He's the one who composed the music for the band's visit. I've worked with him on the band's visit. He's a dear friend with, I think, great melodic abilities. I mean, what I really love about music, I'm very simple about that. I want someone to give me a melody I can remember, like a classic film melody. I want to hear, and Habib has it, you know. I think not many musicians, I mean, a lot of film musicians can create a lot of different atmosphere or being grand, but not many can produce a simple melody. I think there's a quote by Bartok saying composing is recalling a folk song that was never invented. Yeah, it's like you recall like a melody that was always there, and it's like a folk melody, but you know you invented it, but in a way you recalled it from your deep memory in some way.
You know, I look at your face when you talk about music. If you had not been a filmmaker, would you have been a musician?
I wish I had a real talent for that. I mean, I try.
Your face lit up.
Yeah. That's where I'm working on music and working, or the marriage of music and image is like where I'm happy.
So here you are, an Israeli director with an Israeli director of cinematography, director of photography, going into an Israeli-Palestinian village. How did the village accept you, and how was it to work together, Palestinians and Israelis, on a project like this?
Yeah, I mean, just to set really the terms in a correct way, I would say that the term Israeli Arab is not an acceptable term by the Palestinian I worked with. Actually, if you look, there's no such thing. Israeli Arab, that was a term invented by the states in order in some way to erase the Palestinian identity. They are Palestinians. Now there's like
Palestinians with Israeli citizenship.
Yeah, it's the same way as I am a Jew.
Jew with Israeli citizenship.
A Jew with an Israeli citizenship, you know. So it's always like people start to talk with the identity, but yeah, we are both citizens.
but was there tension when you came into the kfar, into the village?
No, it was
very
lovely. Why not? It was really a labor of love. We came in the village, people were helping us, there were extras from the village. It was one of the most close and heartfelt productions I ever been with, you know. We shot in two villages, in Blin and Fasuta, which is more up north.
Where they're in the Galilee?
Yeah, and
near Nazareth?
Fasuta is almost on the border of Lebanon, is much higher, and Blin is near Shfaram, if you know, it's like not too far from Nazareth, but everything is quite close in Israel. Nothing is very far away from it's a small country. And I don't know, there was a beautiful simplicity to all of that. Once you just acknowledge that no one's identity should, be on top of other identity, and anyone can. That's from the beginning. I said, we're doing this together. Anyone is free to speak his mind any way he wants.
Beautiful.
That's it,
Eran, why did you become a filmmaker? And did you set out as a young child to want to make movies?
I remember from very early age thinking about cinema, I remember myself, really it was, I think, kindergarten, and I had in my mind, I came to my father who was a filmmaker, and I told him, I have an opening for a film. You see an old man and he's walking with a little kid in a wood, and then you see that, and then you see someone putting on gloves and taking a gun and everything, and then there will be headlines calling it the murder. So thinking about it now, it's kind of cinematic feeling, you know, someone is... And I remember really strong that I had this film in my head called The Murder, and I will make it someday. I don't know who were this old guy and his son. Maybe one day I will... maybe one day, you know, I'll do this movie and then I'll discover who they were. But I always had... I grew up in a film-loving house. I was sitting with my father. You know, he made me watch all the Hitchcock films, all the classic Americans films. We sit in the evening. He would explain to me, you know, Vertigo, you know, watch how he cut from his face down to the... So I grew into it, and I think I'm okay in that. I mean, that's my little place in the world.
and your first, I mean, you had, I think, a TV film first, but your first really narrative was The Band's Visit. So what a way to begin, my gosh. Yeah. You are given the Ophir Award, you get several Ophir Awards as a first-time director. The film is then sent for the Oscar. Yeah, you're robbed of your Oscar. Many people say that had it been, you know, what happened, just for our viewers, is that, in fact, because it didn't have enough foreign language at the time, the award's been changed since, then you didn't qualify. So they yanked your film out of contention. It probably would have won. And now you're again...
So if there's any Academy voters in the audience, that's your opportunity to.
So now Israel, because it was the winner of the Ophir, is sending it to Hollywood for the Oscars.
Yeah, so now is a good opportunity maybe to close a little circle and get the Oscar. I really would like to. Yes, I mean, it was a big first step for me. But at the time, I'm not saying I wasn't ready, but I felt that as my own development as an artist, I needed to make, so I made the second film I made, The Exchange, was much more abstract. It's a film that I like very much, but not many people have seen it, but it is very close to me, and I felt that I was, you know, evolving my cinematic view. Even though I was offered, you know, after The Band's Visit, like tons of scripts and, you know, Hollywood, but it wasn't right for me at the time. I mean, it didn't happen, and it didn't happen for a reason. And the reason also was that I was not into that, really. First of all, my stories come from Israel for good and bad and whatever. That's where I live. That's the stories that really interest me. And I'm here in the business of working on what I love and I'm interested in. So it's not necessary that if you have a big budget film that I find it interesting, except for the budget. And I made The Exchange, which was very abstract, and then I wanted to kind of evolve my more heavy dramatic film, and I made Beyond the Mountains and Hills, which was very like a tragedy, for me, like a dramatic tragedy of a society breaking up. And then with Let It Be Morning, I felt like I'm integrating all my films, and I kind of found my correct tone between pathos and drama and stupidness and clownness, and I felt that it was. So I'm really happy in a way making this journey, having the big success, having unsuccessful films. I mean, depends how you define success, okay?
Box office maybe, but critically?
Yeah. No, critically they were good. Also in critics, I got everything. I got bad critics, I got good critics.
Always?
Yeah, always. I made films that made a lot of audience, I made films that made none of audience, and I made films that made okay audience. And they were all my films. I'm happy with them. I believe they have something to say, I believe. So I got to this point which I feel, I hope it will last. I feel kind of comfortable. Like I have this, I feel that I have a nice palette of different colors and
ready to paint some more.
Yeah, choose whatever you like.
After the band's visit, you took it to Broadway.
Yeah.
Why did you, how did that happen?
Well, it wasn't me taking it to Broadway.
But it was you wrote it, you directed it?
No, I directed the film, actually, if it wasn't for the persistence of Orin Wolf, the producer, this would never have been done in Broadway, because I was thinking that's a bad idea. I thought he's going to dress them as cats.
What did it? 10 Tonys, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. So when he came to me, I really thought that's going to be a very cheesy American thing, and I don't want it. But he was persistent, and then he brought amazing people like David Cromer and David Yazbek and Itamar, who wrote Itamar Moses, who wrote the play, and they did this wonderful adaptation that kept, the spirit of the film. And just before I came to New York, I was just now in Buffalo, because I came from Israel straight to Buffalo, because there was the tour of the band's visit. I wanted to see the tour. And it's unbelievable that it was a huge venue, and people, and you see audience that are so far away from this story, really. I don't know. And suddenly they hear this music, and you can see them slowly leaning in the theater. It's not a classical, how do you say, Broadway? No, it's full with silences, and and you could feel them leaning in, and it's real magic how this story connects so many people that are not your story. yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I know it's my story, but somehow it happened. So,
so something very interesting happened at the Cannes Film Festival. Your film was accepted at Cannes, and there's the old expression: "There's no such thing as bad publicity." Your two major cast members, terrific actors, Alex Bakri and Judas, who was also, as you mentioned, your casting director, decided not to come to the screening, along with the supporting actors. And they came out with a statement that they weren't comfortable with what? With it being listed as an Israeli film?
Well, first of all, for me, this whole thing was an act of solidarity. We spoke before. I don't know, people don't remember now, but it was like 2 weeks after this most atrocious war that happened, really senseless war that had no reason. It was so close to that. The tension with Palestinians inside Israel was, it puts you in a very hard position as Palestinian actor who supports and proud in the film, but do not want to be used as now in the propaganda machine, to present this.
Look how nice everything is.
Looks how nice. So we spoke about it. There was, several ways of going about it. I thought the best way was for them to go to Cannes and say whatever on their mind, but apparently it was too heavy at the time. So we acted as I think we acted throughout the film. I said, whatever you do, I'm going to back you. I can understand, I can understand that someone is an actor, is an artist, he wants to be in a film, wants to do his art, but that's not necessarily saying that he wants to be used as something which is not connected maybe to the film. So I think the pact we had, the agreement that is still going on, was in a way, they support the film. I mean, if you read their statement, it opens with, "We are proud and we stand behind and we are happy that this film is in Cannes." But we have problems with being us presented as Israelis and ignoring our Palestinian identity, which is something, by the way, the Israeli government caused, because the Israeli government passed a law, a very ludicrous, stupid law, saying something like, whenever a film gets financed by fund from Israel, the fund should make an effort that it being presented as Israeli, you know, some stupid fascist
and
law.
yet the film did get a lot of funding.
No,
But they knew what the story was.
First of all, they are law-abiding taxpayers, same as me.
No, I'm talking about the, absolutely.
So the fact that someone is, the money got in from a certain judicial system doesn't mean the identity of the thing, he has to appropriate that. I mean, if someone here, I don't know, he makes a Mexican, he's Mexican, he tells a Mexican story, and the money came from, I don't know, a white Christian, does this makes this a white Christian story? No. So what's the connection with getting money and having identity?
Okay. So Iran, in effect, it was beautiful that you came up there and you presented their statement on their behalf. And you did the same thing at the Ophir Award.
Yeah, for sure.
And the people in the audience applauded, if I remember. I watched the Ophir Awards.
Well, some applauded and some were like giving interviews like a week later saying, and one of the contenders like a week later made this huge interview in Haaretz attacking me for reading it, for reading this statement, saying that, these are leftist films. So, it was split, as always. There are people who support and people who are against.
That's what you have in a democracy.
Yes, but in my point of view...
Your right to speak.
My point of view is a very basic human solidarity. I worked with those people. Their heart is in the film. They have the right to speak in whatever, and I will help and I will be there to not to have it being appropriated as as a presentation that everything is okay. No, it's about raising those questions, exact question that we are speaking about, and these are good questions to discuss. Exactly, the fact that the money comes from a certain system, that this means that it imposes a certain identity? No, it cannot. It's something completely else. This money coming from a democratic system should be a money that enables different people to express their different identity and their different cultural identity. That's how it really is supposed to work in a democratic system.
Noam Semo, who was the Consul General for Cultural Affairs in New York, once made that very statement. He said that we are a democracy and we allow different voices. And that's what makes a democracy special.
Well, I wish I could say we are a democracy. Unfortunately, there's a lot of suppression. There's a lot of law system that discriminates. So what I would say is that we are in a struggle for democracy.
The film is Vayehi Boker, Let It Be Morning. It's an incredible film. Which really gives you insight into a very important question that Israelis are dealing with and that all of us should be talking about. I encourage you to go see it.